history can be traced back to these animals, and our disregard or our lack of respect for these animals, I think, is kind of representative or indicative of kind of where we are as a nation.
When I was growing up, we had our cowboy heroes that we liked to go see on Saturdays, Gene Archery and Roy Rogers. Gene Archer's horse was Champion and Roy Rogers' horse was called Trigger. And so when I got my guitar, my new Martin guitar, I decided to name it Trigger.
These wild horses that we have left in America are the core source of the animals that helped human beings for thousands and thousands of years to advance.
They were so closely bonded to their horses that they could not really afford to lose them because it would be tantamount to losing a part of themselves, you know, part of their spirit. So I think they were very much concerned to keep their horses safe, to keep them close by. There was this idea that if you give up your horses, that's the end. You've lost yourself.
I had the honor to make the documentary film Spirit Riders. Spirit Riders is a journey into a movement to recover spiritually and culturally from the genocide committed to American Indians. Communing with the horses, riding across dramatic Western landscapes in a sacred manner had a powerful impact on all of us who participated. It challenged us to face ourselves, reflect and examine history from a Lakota perspective.
Many traditional Lakota believe that peace for all people and true harmony with the environment are not only possible, but necessary for the future of life on Earth. That each part of creation is connected to all other parts and the whole. The elders' hope is to inspire similar journeys and prayers in communities all over the globe. Many Lakota see in these rides an invaluable vision of peace for all the peoples of the world.
As I was completing the film Spirit Riders, I documented my first Bureau of Land Management wild horse roundup in the high desert of Wyoming. BLM officials and contractors let me film pretty much wherever I wanted. You can hear the helicopter right above me. The band stallions were devastated by the separation from their families. The Bureau of Land Management said the wild horses were starving on the range, and the range was in poor condition. I saw neither, except for the massive oil, gas, and mining installations unfolding in the surrounding area. The greed and ignorance I documented that day would change the course of my life. Mustangs and Renegades, a modern-day Western.
In the spring of 2007, I met David Glenn.
It feels very magical to me that you feel these creatures that are with you and moving, and you can see their enjoyment in life and how they enjoy moving, and you can see that enjoyment of freedom in them.
David said, hey, have you been out to the Spring Creek wild horse herd out in Disappointment Valley? And I'm like, no, I haven't. He said, well, I've got to take you out there.
When we got there, I went off into the area exploring, and David rode his trusty steed, Buck. And then I encountered Traveler. An amazing, powerful, wild, free-roaming horse. All of a sudden, Traveler sees me. He just locked right onto me. He immediately rounded up his family, showing how protective and caring he is as a father. He snorted at me, showing his strength, basically saying, "This is my space and family. Don't come any closer." I was so taken by the valley and the wild horses that I was deeply inspired to document them firsthand by spending time in their domain. Disappointment Valley is a magnificent location. The majestic San Juan Mountains of Colorado slope down into the high desert on the Colorado-Utah border. The combination of Red Rock Desert, Pinyon Forest, the Dolores River, and the dominant La Salle Mountains across the valley in Utah creates a mystical setting. The surrounding area is dotted with Anasazi ruins and petroglyphs. DNA testing of some of the Spring Creek wild horses dates back to the oldest registered horses in the Americas, the Spanish criollos, that were introduced by the conquistadors in the 1500s. The local Ute Indians brought the Spanish horses to this area long before the first pioneers arrived. Later on, Butch Cassidy and his gang were known for getting fresh horses from this area after they robbed the Telluride Bank and were making their getaway into Utah. The combination of great beauty, athletic grace, and historic importance makes these wild horses a very significant part of historic and genetic heritage. The herd dynamics of the wild horses are extraordinary. The dominant band stallion is the protector of the family unit, warding off predators such as mountain lions, wolves, and younger stallions, while the lead mare guides and directs the younger horses to food and water. Both the dominant herd stallion and mare show amazing leadership and share their valuable wisdom with the younger horses. Sometimes, the dominant herd stallion will let the younger stallions work into his group, but he always manages to chase them off. Out here, the watering hole is life. Notice how the horses cooperate. A herd will come in, drink, cool off, and rest for a short spell, and then move on, allowing others to partake. They never defecate in the water like cattle. The horses spend the large majority of their time out roaming on the land, actually helping to spread seeds through their manure and tilling up the land with their well-designed hooves. In many cases, the wild horses help to restore the land. As the summer progressed, I got to know the herd, the family bands, and individual horses. Apache plays with his friends, Wachapi and Blanco. When the colts are around 2 years of age, they're expelled from the family unit, and they form bachelor bands. The young stallions love to play and challenge each other. This aggressive young stallion is known as Hokahe. For David and I, we just loved being on the land with the wild ones, learning from them and documenting their profound ways. There they were, Blanco, Wachapi, and Apache, sniffing at our horses, a Kiowa and Buck. What I loved about the Spring Creek herd is that they were just like America, like me, a mixed blood. The wild horses embody the power, strength, and beauty of the Americas. They are a true melting pot and represent survival of the fittest. Integrating the great traits from a wide variety of horses, the original Mustangs that populated the continent before the Ice Age, the horses that the American Indians bred, cavalry and pioneer horses, and the fastest outlaw getaway horses, all had the genes and intelligence to survive and thrive in the wild. In their bloodlines, they carry a far more interesting history than a pure breed. In their bloodlines, they carry the history of our nation. The bachelors get too close to Traveler and his family. Notice how Traveler charges and bites Apache, driving off the younger stallions. Being a band stallion is a lot of work. One day, Hokahe decided to charge me. Lucky for me, my loud voice scared him away. Along with its diversity and beauty of the Disappointment Valley ecosystem, it is also packed with rich resources of gas, oil, uranium, and rare earth, which are crucial in producing computers and cell phones. Disappointment Valley's fate will be determined by these competing interests versus the desire to protect and conserve this valley's wildness. As I spent time on the land with the wild ones, as I watched them share the range and the water, it became clear that I had to tell their story and the story of this valley, which is one of the last living examples of minimally touched West before it all disappears. The horses and the valley haunt your soul. Everything seemed to be going fairly well for the horses. They were sharing the land with the cattle herd, setting a good example that cattle and horses can coexist. There were roughly 120 adult wild horses, almost a genetically viable herd. We learned about the upcoming wild horse gather and had some concerns. The Bureau of Land Management, the federal agency that oversees most of America's wild horses, assured us that the horses would be treated humanely and with concern. But what we actually witnessed and documented was rather shocking. During the roundup, a BLM official showed up and told me I would need to sign some new paperwork. As I was looking over the permit, I noticed a new additional clause saying BLM receives first right of review. The BLM officer mentioned how he was issuing another permit that day for a multi-million-dollar oil and gas drilling lease. He gave me the impression that my work was insignificant and I'd better sign the documents. I realized, without signing the new permit, they would deny us the opportunity to film, so I signed the filming permit. I knew I'd be able to contest this legally down the road. This would be the first of many attempts by the BLM to censor my work. The horses were run from one end of the herd management area to the other, about 10 miles in the blazing August desert heat. After the 10-mile run, the horses were pushed down a mountainside at full gallop with many hazards in their path. The brutality I witnessed was heartbreaking, as images of the Mustangs just days earlier, roaming and frolicking on the range, kept crossing my mind. Exhausted and crowded together, horses crashed into metal pens, then forced into tighter chutes to be processed and separated from their families. With no concern how a wild horse would fight and injure itself in the process, They separated the family bands and put all the stallions into one pen, guaranteeing that the stallions would fight and injure each other. Traveler leads his family through the treacherous terrain, running for hours in the intense desert heat. The BLM contractors put Traveler and his mare into the stallion pen, resulting in a brutal fight, injuring the horses. The wild ones are processed like cattle. They are rounded up, then they are separated by sex, branded, castrated, and shot up with antibiotics to help combat the foreign and germ-filled environment that they are about to enter. Traveler and many of the other horses were removed to the Canyon City Wild Horse and Burro Processing Facility. In their Orwellian use of language, the word gather hid the true violence and brutality of the roundup. I actually liked the BLM employees I had met with, but I wasn't sure if they were really concerned with the horses' welfare. Prior to the roundup, the wild horses, the range, and the cattle were doing well. After the roundup, the number of horses they left on the range was so low it jeopardized the survival of the herd. The herd went from 120 to 37 adult wild horses with no consideration for this amazing species. Most of all, my main concern was to get Traveler set free.
They had a pre-arrangement that that horse would not be removed. The excuse was that they say that nobody was here to identify him.
This horse, they call him Traveler. And one of the ladies said that he's over in Canyon City.
Yeah.
But you might release him back.
Yeah. Because our intent all along was to put Traveler out because they asked us to. But then there wasn't anybody to identify Traveler when the truck was leaving, so on the truck he went.
Canyon City, Colorado, with numerous state and federal prisons, it's the county's largest employer. Traveler and the other wild horses are transported through razor wire to their new prison home.
In the corrals, their eyes are half closed, their heads are down, they're slumping. My mother, who grew up in Romania, and her family fled when Hitler came to Romania. And when I was telling her about the roundup the day that I saw it, she said, "So what happens after the horses are caught?" And I said, "Well, they go to these holding facilities and they're processed." And she said, "What does that mean?" And I said, "Well, they separate the older stallions from the younger stallions. They separate the mares from the foals. They separate the young mares, the yearlings." And she just was quiet, and then she said, "That's just like the camps."
The Bureau of Land Management is a federal agency under the Department of the Interior that oversees federal public lands. My first step was to get a snapshot of the BLM. I talked with Randy Udall, nephew of Stuart Udall, former Secretary of the Interior. Randy, an independent energy expert, consulted the National Petroleum Council when they researched their report, Hard Truths About Energy.
The BLM owns about 280 million acres in states like New Mexico, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, Nevada. The BLM is the dominant landholder. And in many of these states now, natural gas development has skyrocketed.
Some of it's used for extractive industries, some of it's used for recreation. So we're not the Park Service. And that's about as far as I'll go.
As I did more research, things weren't adding up. Now it had turned political, and the only future I could see in front of me was one of an activist. The story was getting bigger and bigger, and the trail led to many of the western states where the wild horses were facing similar troubles.
It's a question of who controls public lands in the western United States. Traditionally, as far as BLM lands go, and to a certain extent Forest Service lands, the livestock industry, the oil industry, and the mining industry control those lands. And it's either their way or the highway.
Jim Baca, former director of the Bureau of Land Management, has a deep inside perspective of the challenges, struggles, and dysfunctions of the wild horse and burro program.
They go out, they use helicopters, they do all this stuff to catch these horses. They get 200 horses in a pen, and then all of a sudden they can't track them. And if you can't do that for a few thousand horses, then there's a real dereliction of duty that's occurring on part of the federal government, who is mandated to protect many of these horses.
The second largest form of income for the United States government is the leasing of our public lands to the extractive industries.
The oil and gas industry is feeling that they are entitled to go in and drill everywhere that they want to. They really believe that. The mining industry, I mean, they haven't even paid royalties for many, many years, so why should they want any changes in what happens on western public lands? And so I think the horses almost are like an indicator species.
He was not afraid to speak truth to power during his time at BLM. His innovative ideas to improve the program were squashed.
That program was in big disarray, and we were starting to move on it during my term in office there, and a lot of pressure was brought on the president and Mr. Babbitt to dump me, and I left before they could do it.
In 1971, the United States Congress unanimously passed the Wild, Free, Roaming Horse and Burro Act. Before the act, wild horses were being hunted for their flesh and for sport. Citizens sent more letters to Congress over the threats to these wild animals than any other domestic issue in U.S. history. Congress then appointed the BLM to manage the Wild, Free, Roaming Horse and Burro Act. The act states, wild, free, roaming horses and burros shall be protected from capture, branding, harassment, or death. And to accomplish this, they are to be considered in the area we're presently found as an integral part of the natural system of the public lands. Granting BLM stewardship of what Congress called living symbols of historic and pioneer spirit of the West. Some members of Congress have found a rather clever way to dismember this legislation entirely. Without a hearing or an opportunity for public review, Senator Conrad Burns from Montana snuck a rider into the 2005 federal appropriations bill, amending the Wild and Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act.
The Burns Amendment, I think, was put in place to help remove this, big glut of horses that we have in holding facilities right now.
David, that's the release.
I was granted a rare interview with Dave Couture, the controversial owner of the livestock company the government hires to round up the wild horses. Couture has rounded up more Mustangs than anyone on the planet. It did not surprise me that the BLM hired a livestock company to do the job. I overheard Couture call the wild horses vermin.
Well, with helicopters, you start out as slow and you actually do a lot of herding. You locate them and drift them towards your trap. These horses are not good shape out here. You run them hard for a quarter mile, they're done for, it's over. So you got to drive them like cattle, you can't run them.
The criminally convicted Dave Couture still receives millions of dollars in federal contracts. In 2010, Dave Couture's company led the extremely brutal Calico Complex Winter Roundup, in which over 100 wild horses perished and hundreds more suffered terribly. BLM's appropriate management level for the 5 herd management areas in the Calico complex is 600 horses for 600,000 acres. This translates into 1 individual wild horse for every 1,000 acres.
A wild horse is a wild horse, a free roaming wild horse. You brand that horse and you castrate him and you put him in reserves back east, totally off their range. Can you call that horse a wild horse? He's not a wild horse, he's a horse on welfare. Then they should be quietly disposed of, humanely as possible. You can't slaughter them on the wild horses, bury them.
As I was pulled deeper and deeper into the wild horse issue, the topic that kept coming up was slaughter and how the wild horses were being sent to slaughterhouses for profit. It didn't take too much digging to find evidence. In the Del Rio investigation, a federal grand jury had collected evidence that shows U.S. government officials allowed the slaughter of hundreds of wild horses taken from federal lands, falsified records, and tried to prevent investigators from uncovering the truth. But the case was shut down after federal officials in Washington, including officials outside the investigation, intervened.
We won't allow horses to die of starvation and dehydrate and die on the range and have this big mass die-off. There's a lot of people and organizations that would like to see that.
There are no horses dying and starving in Nevada. The last instance of any horses dying and starving in Nevada was up in Panaca, Nevada. That was a case where the BLM and their contractors ran some into a trap, forgot about them, went away for a week, and they died a brutal death of dehydration.
I've seen a really good improvement in these herds because what we're doing, we're trying to improve the herds. Any animals, any older animals that are over the age of 10, we are required to sell those animals.
At 125, I had 125 on the middle round there. I sold the horse 125, number 10, 125, number. Very good, very good.
This is another example of the BLM not considering the sensitive herd dynamics of the wild horses. The BLM is removing the wisdom of the older, wiser horses that teach the younger ones survival skills and family structure.